Winter was passing on the island of Sodor, but there were still 1 or 2 late frosts which made everything look sugar-coated and sparkling in the spring sunshine. As the months passed, Henry and Gordon would take it in turns to pull the express from the big station to the mainland and back again. Each morning, Donald and Douglas took it in turns to bring a ballast train from the small railway, and James then pulled the trucks to a place where the line was being mended. One morning, Donald was uncoupled and ran ahead into a short siding to let James take his place at the front of the trucks. But a hard frost had made the rails icy. When Donald tried to stop, his wheels locked and they slid on the ice. Before he could say "Fat Controller," he had hit the buffers at the end of the siding.
"Fizzling fireboxes," said
Donald. The buffers stopped him. That was what they were there for. But they were badly damaged. Donald was lucky. He wasn't hurt at all. Just embarrassed.
"Come on,"
said his driver.
"Let's get you back to the shed."
When Donald returned to the yard, Henry and Percy teased him.
"You should go in for the skating championships,"
chuckled Henry.
"They up and end with a bash,"
said Percy. Even Donald laughed, though he was worried what the Fat Controller might say. But the Fat Controller wasn't cross with Donald. He knew it hadn't really been Donald's fault, but he warned him to be more careful.
"You must take extra care and be alert about things around you," he said. "Next time it could be far more serious."
"Yes, sir,"
replied Donald. The next day, men were sent to mend the buffers. At last, James' repair work on the line was ending.
"Tomorrow's train, Douglas, will be the last for the time being."
"Yes, sir, I understand."
"As I've also said to Donald, you must be careful, take extra care, and be aware of your surroundings."
"Understood, sir,"
said Douglas' driver. The next day, Douglas drew his loaded trucks to a halt in their siding. James was waiting.
"Here you are, James,"
he said cheerfully.
"What are you going to do now this job is finishing?"
"Well, pull some passenger trains, I hope. I'm getting tired of doing the same thing all the time."
"Never mind. Today's the last one."
His fireman uncoupled the trucks and climbed back into the cab. Then Douglas puffed slowly into the short siding. At the end of the siding, the men who had been mending the buffers were standing to one side. They had pots of paint beside them and had just finished painting the buffer beam bright red.
"That looks very smart. Much better than it did before. The Fat Controller's probably glad Donald smashed it up."
He moved into the siding. His driver put on the brakes. Nothing happened. The driver tried again. Still nothing.
"Horrors!"
he exclaimed.
"I can't stop!"
The workmen watched with dismay. Douglas rolled steadily along the line and smashed to splinters the buffers they had just spent 3 days mending.
"Ouch! That hurt!"
exclaimed Douglas. The new buffers had stopped him, but unfortunately, Douglas had been moving faster than Donald. He was in a terrible mess. His front was badly bent and he was smeared with bright red paint, which hadn't had time to dry.
Grr, you silly great engine!
the foreman scolded, waving his paintbrush angrily. It still had red paint in it, and some of the paint flew out and stuck on Douglas' nose.
3 days' work, and in 3 seconds, you come and smash it all to pieces!
Douglas's front wheels were off the rails, so James had to come and rescue him. When he got back to the shed, the fat controller spoke sternly to him about engines not taking care in sidings, and the red paint on Douglas's nose was left as a reminder.
He's a really useful engine, you know. All the other engines, they'll tell you so. He huffs and puffs and whistles, rushing to and fro. He's the really useful engine we adore. He's a really useful engine, you know. 'Cause the fat controller, he told him so.